All right, wrapping up our coverage at Mountain West Media Days here in Las Vegas. We're at the Resorts World Hotel. We got a little media roundtable here. We got Mark Zeigler, San Diego Union Tribune. We got Geoff Grammer, the Albuquerque Journal. Appreciate you guys. Been fun the last 12 years being in this league to get to know you guys, call you guys friends, and fun that we get a little joint interview here for 10, 15 minutes. Mark, or how you guys doing, I guess, first of all?
Well, I'm just happy I'm allowed in. I'm happy I did not get voted out of the interview today. So I am still covering the UNM Lobos. I want to make sure that's clear and out on the table. But yes,
we love you,
I'm
Geoff.
happy to be here.
That has been crazy. What do you make about New Mexico getting left out and all that?
Look, New Mexico, I mean, we're here because of basketball today, right? New Mexico basketball's been its own thing for a long time. Lobo football has not been successful for almost forever, and Lobo basketball has still kind of survived. It'll still survive, but man, in modern college basketball, the league is pretty darn important. It may not have been in the past, but you got to have a league around you now to get NCAA tournament berths and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a big shot, and people in Albuquerque aren't exactly all that happy, but most people get it. It's a big football thing, and it's a big investment thing too.
What do you make about all this that's going on right now?
I'm not surprised it happened. I think San Diego State and Boise State had one foot out the door for several years. I mean, San Diego State really had a foot out the door last year. And so I think they really wanted to go. And I think Fresno State and Utah State eventually and Colorado State were just sort of along for the ride, grabbed on the coattails. A little sad that there wasn't a little bit more negotiation with those schools coming back to the Mountain West. I think they could have kept the league together and kind of frozen out Oregon State and Washington State and kept the thing strong and been in a position of strength. But I just think, San Diego State and Boise State needed a win, or what was perceived as a win, and this was perceived as a win, and so that's how it happened.
You still think Memphis is possible, or what's next for the Pack?
I think they're going to go after Memphis. I think not immediately. I'm sure there's an open line of communication. I think they need to go to TV partners, potential TV partners, and get some numbers, some hard numbers that they can take to Memphis. Memphis is a tough spot though, because if the finances start to work for them, the numbers start to work, the logistics don't. And this league has become very, very Western centric. If it had been, 3 or 4 Mountain West teams and 3 or 4 AAC teams, and it was spread, maybe a Conference USA team, and it was spread across the country, then everyone would have to travel a little bit. Right now, you've got all these teams traveling in the West, and then Memphis is the one that's going to have to make all these trips.
Yeah.
And not just in basketball or football, but in softball and soccer and volleyball, and that's really hard to do. And unless they can find another league to put those sports in, it's going to make it hard for them.
What's next for the Mountain West, you think? I mean, is like Grand Canyon or somebody, basketball only makes some sense? Or
Yeah, so I think what's going to happen now is that they got their 8 full members with the Hawaii thing, which is interesting, but it makes sense. Okay, Hawaii football convert to all sports. So I think what the Mountain West does now is they do still explore, although maybe not as heavily as some have reported, but they do still explore the Northern Illinois, Toledo, get into the Midwest for TV purposes, rationale for football only. There is some truth to that is still a possibility, but I don't think it's the front burner kind of thing that they're doing right now, like maybe it's been reported by some. I do think basketball only, though, is what they're going to look at. And if Gonzaga's leaving the West Coast Conference, and that conference is not what it once was, then the Mountain West has an opportunity to look at a couple schools in the West Coast Conference and say, look, are you interested in basketball only? Because frankly, what I think, and again, I'm the guy that covers basketball, so I know there's a little bias here. The Mountain West lost an opportunity a decade ago to really double down and make basketball a powerhouse league in basketball. They could have positioned itself a little better rather than, look, all the money's about football. We get that, right? But rather than sort of chase that and try and build up all the football, they could have doubled down and said, okay, we get that, and we're not going to forget about football, but we can make this a basketball program or basketball conference that could have been more attractive to Gonzaga 5 years ago.
Yeah, like the Big East.
Like the Big East. It could have been more
Big East did that. Yep.
To Grand Canyons and St. Mary's as basketball-only kind of opportunities, stuff like that. I think the Mountain West, if I would say they kind of really stumbled somewhere, I'd say that's where it is. I think they could have made this a basketball league a decade ago.
Well, how do you think the next 2 years play out, until we get to that point? Obviously, I know Richard Pitino has been making some comments on, we're done rooting for those teams, whatever. And he came on our show, during the coverage this week and talked about, not happy about it. I'm bitter, whatever. I mean, how do you think they just survive as a league in the Mountain West here with these teams, and particularly, I guess, in basketball, going to some hostile venues and stuff over the next couple of years?
I think in the next 2 years, it'll be look, the Pit's going to be the Pit still. I think Viejas is going to be Viejas. I don't know that it'll be a whole lot different, but that's why I think this could have been a basketball league, is because those venues were going to give you hell about something anyway, right? They were going to be that way anyway. It might be a little more hostile. The teams that are staying in the Mountain West sure would love to see, another 4 or 5 bid season next year. I don't think it'll happen this season, but one more 4 or 5 bid. Give us all those unit shares and they stay with the league. They sure would like to see that. And, the Pac-12, it's going to be a pretty good basketball league. We know that. But I really think, in talking to people, I know you've been talking to a lot more people about this than I have. I really think in hindsight, a month from now, a year from now, something like that, people are going to look back at this and think the realignment could have been done better, where if you want to relegate or kick some teams out or whatever you want to do, that could have been done. I don't think the dead weight argument that you had to go to the Pac-12 to get rid of the dead weight, I don't think that was the only option. I think there were some options that the Mountain West could have survived by building the Mountain West and dropping dead weight rather than sort of splitting it a little bit and the way they did.
What's your take on just this league this year, basketball-wise? And obviously they're not getting 6 in again, but what do you make of the league this year?
2 thoughts. One is, it's not last year's league. Everybody lost a lot of players, and the players coming in, I don't think have the same. I mean, they're not proven, and so we'll have to wait and see on that. But I think every team probably took a little bit of a step back. Even Boise State, I don't think they had the depth maybe that they had last year, and they're missing a guy like Max Rice who won them a lot of games. Just the special clutch.
Abo's gone too. Yeah.
Yep. I know Cam was a big part of that team internally. So I think there's a lot of question marks. I don't think it's obviously not going to be a 6-team league. I think maybe a 2-team league, possibly get a third in there. My second thought is I'm really interested to see how the metrics play out this year with the 20-game schedule, see if it affects it. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And also on a broader scale, when we get to Selection Sunday, the Big East was furious. They got 3 teams in last year. The ACC got 4. Both those leagues were very vocal. And so if they're being vocal with media, can you imagine what they're being with the selection committee behind the scenes? And they carry a lot of juice. When Dan Hurley's mad, they're going to listen to him. And so I think it's going to hurt bubble teams in the Mountain West next year. I think, they've gotten there 2 or 3 years. They got some bubble teams in. I don't think they will, so I don't think they'll get the benefit of the doubt because those other power conferences are going to say, hey, it's our turn. So I think those are 2 things kind of working against the league this year. Still, that said, I'm listening to coaches talk today. I'm looking at some of these players. I'm going, man, it's still a pretty good league. And at least the top 7 teams are pretty evenly matched. And I think you're going to have some really good games.
And your time is short here, so I'll stay with you for a second. But what else stood out to you? What you heard, players, coaches, Gloria, any just big takeaways from media days?
I talked to a couple of guys I talked to Tyson and Omar from Boise, and they really sound excited about this year's team with the pieces they've added, the way they're playing, having a true point guard. They both said that we're better than last year, which I thought was an interesting thing because they had, a pretty good team last year and won some big games, beat San Diego State twice. That was interesting to me. I talked to Richard Pitino and like you said, he was really candid about the conference realignment and, kind of really sad that they couldn't work things out and keep the league together and thinks you just broke it up for no reason. It was interesting to hear the San Diego State guys talk about being picked 4th. This is the first time in 11 years they haven't been picked 1st or 2nd. Preseason poll. I know it's a preseason poll.
Wow.
But, they said, a little bit of chip in our shoulder. And
I love that. I love that being picked 4th is the disrespect for San Diego State.
I mean, and it's funny, and they're
finished fifth last year. They actually got picked higher.
And that's what Dutch said. Dutch is the guy who has the voice of reason here. He's like, hey, we got picked up a spot above where we were last year. But
what is one take on San Diego State? I know that Dutcher's really high on them, and a lot of guys that fans aren't familiar with that they expect to really break out this year.
So the biggest thing that's going to be different is the last few years, their secret sauce has been old guys. When they went to the national championship game, they had a 9-man rotation. They were all junior, senior, 5th-year senior, 6th-year senior. This year, their rotation will have 5 freshmen or sophomores in it, which is unheard of for them. So they're going to be really young. And the question for me is, they play a very sophisticated defense. Can they implement that defense and some of those team, ethos and all those things that they did that they're so good at with freshmen and sophomores, or is it just going to take another year? And the second takeaway is their early schedule is absolutely brutal. They play in succession: Gonzaga, Creighton, Oregon, and then another team in the Texas A&M right now, or it could be somebody else in the Players era, with no break in between. And right now on paper, I mean, not only will they lose those games, they might lose them by double figures because they're just so young and not ready for that level of basketball. By February, I think they will be, but they're going to be so far behind the 8 ball early. Everyone's going to forget about them. And the question is going to be, can they recover from that and be good in February and compete in a league that isn't quite as good as last year? They'll have a shot. But it's going to be a San Diego State season unlike any in the last 10 or 15 years.
Well, we'll be reading your coverage of the San Diego Union Tribune. I know you got to get to another interview. I'm going to, Geoff, keep you for a couple more minutes if that's okay. Mark, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Anytime, man.
Yep,
Thank
there
you.
he is, Mark Zeigler. And Colin, I may switch over to the 2-shot here and slide over next to we'll mute Mike 2 since he's no longer there. And I'll come over here and sit by you, and we'll switch the camera over here if we can make that work. There we go. Maybe just turn it just a little slightly. But, okay, what were your overall takeaways from media days?
I mean, a lot of similar stuff. I mean, people talking realignment, stuff like that. People talking last year's 6 teams getting in. Still kind of a buzz in general about how good this league was last year. But, man, it'd be silly to ignore the elephant in the room that of how much is not in the room anymore, right? Every team lost quite a bit. What's interesting is, like, I did this for every team. The Lobos lose 3 starters, and JT Toppin, Jamal Mashburn Jr., Jalen House, and you think, wow, that they just lost a lot. Yeah. You take Air Force out of the equation, who doesn't have the transfer portal to deal with coming in or going, and UNM Lobos returned the highest percentage of scoring of anybody in the league, despite Jalen House, JT Toppin, and Jamal Mashburn Jr. leaving. Yeah. They returned 46 point something.
4 guys that average at least 17 minutes, I think, ranks pretty high too.
So they actually returned quite a bit despite losing so much. And that just kind of speaks to the entire league. Everybody lost an awful lot. And San Diego State, of course, is the one that lost the most in that top group of 7 anyway. I know Fresno State and Wyoming, they're basically complete rebuilds right now. But in that top 7 grouping of teams, San Diego State's I think Mark said it best. It's going to be a season unlike any other that they've had. I mean, it will be interesting to see who they lean on. I mean, even last year, maybe Lamont, after hitting the shot 2 years ago to get him in the Final Four, to get into the championship game, Lamont Butler maybe he wasn't what people thought he was going to be in terms of a great lead guard and all that. And he was really good still. Sure. But you knew who was coming back every year. You can walk around this room, and this is people that cover the Mountain West, and I'll bet you half the people here couldn't tell you who's going to be, who San Diego State's returning players are. It's because they just don't have any this year like they have in the past. So, Dutch talked a little bit to me about that. I asked him, I said, does the coach in you almost like the fact that you're starting from scratch and you just get to put your imprint on it from the start? And he said, no, I'd rather have 3 or 4 year guys that I've been doing that with for 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
It'll be interesting to see the San Diego State part of it. The poll came out a lot like my ballot did. I had Boise State 1, New Mexico.
Yeah, me too.
2. I did have Nevada 3. I actually think Nevada's a little bit. I did some tiers, and I think Nevada's a little bit off of New Mexico and Boise State this year, but I also think Nevada's ahead of the next grouping of teams, which includes San Diego State. So I think Nevada can be really good, but I think that group of 4 after that, San Diego State, Utah State, UNLV, and Colorado State,
all kind of,
you could do it in any order you want.
And maybe one of those 4 get to the tournament?
Maybe. Yeah. I would predict this will be a 2 or 3 bid team or league, but I will say 4 is still possible. But it'll depend on the non-conference like it always does. And the Lobos, for a change, have a really tough non-conference.
Yeah, we talked to Richard Bettino about that. Again, whenever you're watching this, the poll came out during media days. Boise State was first, New Mexico second, Nevada third, San Diego State fourth, UNLV fifth, Utah State sixth, Colorado State seventh, San Jose State eighth, and then Wyoming, Fresno State, and Air Force. I did the Mountain West for Lindy's magazine this year, Geoff, and I had a pretty close one, but I gave Air Force, you're talking about returning players, they've got 3 returning starters. I had Air Force ninth. I had Wyoming and Fresno. I mean, my fighting about the very bottom here, but which doesn't really matter. But I thought Air Force deserved a little more credit for the 3 guys they had coming back.
My bottom 4 were San Jose State 8, Air Force 9. Yeah, same as you.
Okay.
Same order. The only difference in your poll and my poll was Utah State and UNLV swapped.
Okay.
I had Utah State at 5 and UNLV at 6. And other than that, me and you had the same 1 through 11. So we had 9 of the 11 exact same spots.
Is there a lot of outrage in Albuquerque that Tyson Degenhardt's preseason player of the year, not Donovan Dent?
No, I don't think so. I think people get it. I even kind of lofted it up to Donovan a little bit to be mad at me. I didn't pick you, Donovan. What do you think? And he's like, no, I get it. He's fine. He's a confident guy. He thinks he's going to win it by the end of the season, but he's not under the impression that Tyson doesn't deserve that kind of honor.
New Mexico, probably happy not to see Max Rice again.
Yes.
Isaiah Stevens gone. There's been some mainstays in this league are now gone, and I've talked about this in a lot of different interviews the last couple of days. But
Lamont Butler hit a buzzer beater in the pit against him too. So
yep, and he's going to Kentucky. That's even weirder to see. But just some of these guys, that have been several years in this league, gone. I mean, there's some returning guys. The Tyson Degenhardts of the world, but there's a lot of new look teams too.
Yeah, I'd say the old guard. It's Tyson. I'm trying to think who else in this league. I think Tyson.
I mean, Nick Davidson's been here a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan's in his 3rd year, but he was playing behind Mashburn and Jalen House. So he wasn't, as a freshman, maybe that big.
I mean, if you're talking about guys that have
experience-wise, Tyson Degenhardt's the old guard in this league.
I mean, Alvaro Cardenas has been in the league, but Xavier Dussel, third Mountain West team.
He's put in his time. So, it's going to be a new look league for the most part, for sure. I do think, Dutch made a good point about, in terms of the Lobos and what he likes about UNM is he likes them. He said, when you're strong up the middle, point guard and center, he likes a team that's starting that way. And Donovan Dent at their point guard and Nelly Jr. Joseph back at their 5 at the center spot. They kind of build in on the outside, right? The shooting guards and wing spots and power forward, which is really a stretch forward now. I do think the Lobos have a good foundation. I think they could be pretty good defensively, but it's going to come down to, in my mind, I really think I want to see what Noodles and Alford do with that Nevada roster. And they do got a 20-point scorer coming in from Cal Poly. If they can get Nevada going, I think it could easily be a 3-team race, but I just don't see Boise State falling out of contention this year. I think New Mexico maybe could slip, if anything, but I think it's a 2-team, maybe a 3-team race. I don't know that any of those other 4. I couldn't tell you which one I think it would be. That's for sure.
Any final thoughts on media days, on this league, on these teams, these players, these coaches, the realignment? Just as you sum up kind of your takeaways from this league as we head into another basketball season. Where are you at?
I'll tell you what. Obviously, I do basketball primarily, but man, as weird as it sounds, part of the reason New Mexico was left behind in the realignment stuff is because football's been so bad. They got some good stuff going on in football down there. I'll tell you what, man.
I don't think anybody's going to be surprised that he's getting it going down there.
Yeah, Bronco. Yeah, I think people like Bronco, and he definitely likes his Bronco Nation news. Bronco Mendenhall does.
He has mentioned it a couple times to me.
So I think football's getting rolling down there. I do think people are excited for basketball. And I think the Lobos have a chance. Now they front ended their schedule really, really tough. So we'll see. I mean, they got UCLA in the first week of the season. They got they do play at St. John, or they play St. John's in Madison Square Garden. They got Arizona State, St. Mary's, USC. They got a pretty tough one. VCU's receiving votes. They're coming to the pit. So kind of a tough non-conference. And I do think the Lobos should be pretty good. They got some newcomers that'll fill some key roles.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Always enjoyed it. And you're doing a great job. You're getting into the video. You're getting into the video stuff a little bit.
Yeah, we're doing that. We're probably going to start doing some pregame stuff. It's tougher for me to do postgame because my first obligation is still to get a print product out and all that kind of stuff. So I can't do the post game as much as you do. But I'll probably be doing pregame this year and some more weekly stuff.
Well, where can they check that out? On social media, online?
Yeah, for now, we're just pretty much social media. You can follow me at Geoff Grammer on X, and abqjournal.com is where all our stuff is too.
Well, we appreciate you as always, man. Always great catching up with you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Happy to honored to call you a friend, man, and looking forward to what should be a fun basketball season. I'm sure we'll see how long it takes for one of us to piss off another fan base in the league if it hasn't already happened already.
10 minutes.
There he is, Geoff Grammer. You can read him at the Albuquerque Journal, and that'll do it. Again, Mountain West Media Days coverage, all of our videos, all of our shows. You can go back and watch them on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, and again, YouTube's the easiest way. So thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you to all of our loyal subscribers and advertisers and everybody that helped make this trip possible. So thanks to Colin Mitchell for helping us out as well, and thanks to you for watching. Again, that'll do it. Mountain West Media Days coverage from Resorts World here in Las Vegas. My name is BJ Rains.